Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope.
So this morning, we already have a candle lit for the ancestors, but I'm going to light a special candle for Frankie Beverly, for James Earl Jones, and for the lives that were lost at 9/11, one of which is personal to me. So there we go. Now, let's get to our topic. Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey. I don't have my phone this morning. I decided today I was going to be unplugged except for here at the job. So if you're out there and you're watching this or you're sharing it with someone, please write in the chat and let us know that you are there and watching and all of that. We like to know that we're not just sending this out into the ether. If you are a caregiver that will find us later on, we hope that you will continue to come back. Life is a Sacred Journey. We air every Friday at 8 a.m. for about a half hour or so, and we bring in topics that are pertinent to aging, pertinent to ageism, pertinent to caregiving. So this Friday, right now, we are getting ready to hear from someone who has been with us before. Cheryl Martin is the executive director at Prairie City Landing in Folsom, California, and she's been there for the past 4 years. She's worked in senior care for over 4 decades, so welcome, Cheryl, to that. Starting at a young age as a certified nursing assistant and a home health aide. I remember her, yes, because we have the same sort of beginning. Cheryl has worked in home health, skilled nursing, and assisted living, and she has been an executive director in senior living communities for over 18 years. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business and Healthcare Management from Colorado Technical University, and Cheryl credits her values and ethics to what she has learned from seniors she has been privileged to work with over the years. She is very proud that her daughter Jennifer also works in senior living. So I'm going to admit her now, and I would like for you to help me say good morning and welcome to Cheryl Martin here at Life is a Sacred Journey. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you this morning. I believe we've met before.
We have met. I worked in Oakland.
This platform before.
No, I worked in Oakland at Lakeside Park, and I interacted with you at ASAP. Worked with Anson.
That's how I know you. Okay. Because I kept saying, this is not a stranger.
No, we are not strangers.
I am so, yes, Lakeside Park Friends is an assisted living that specializes in dementia care. And I've been in partnership with them for many, many years. And Cheryl was there. But right now, as I told you in the beginning, she is at the Prairie City Landing in Folsom, California, and she's been there for the past 4 years. And I remember Cheryl because her background and my background are similar, where we started at young ages as certified nursing assistants. That's how I got myself through college, a part of it. And then we just got bit by the bug. To continue to be in this care. Cheryl, I'm excited that you are here this morning, and I really want to talk about grief. And I know you've seen it when you're working with families that are at their wits' end, and they're trying to figure out now it's time for placement, but there's great grief there, or even folks that are living at home that are caring for their loved one. I looked up the numbers again this morning just because I like to give people a point of reference. 43.5 million people are caregiving in the United States at any given time, and that number continues to grow. I know in your decades of work, we've seen that number grow. We've seen the caregivers get younger because we see that there are caregivers, a part of that sandwich generation, that are caring for children on this side and then their parents on this side. We also know that 34.2% are caring for their loved one alone, meaning that there is no other person in the home to help them, and they rely on people like yourself and ASAB and community-based services to support them in that process. Or 82% of them are doing it alone, excuse me. And 82% of them are doing it alone, and that makes grief just bubble up even more. We have anticipatory grief. We have grief just because the person was diagnosed. So I'm so thankful that you agreed to join us this morning to engage in this conversation, because I know how hard it is for caregivers. But tell us a little bit about your experience and what you have experienced and seen in your decades of working with caregivers, because I think the landscape is changing for our caregivers, and I have to say probably not for the better.
It is not for the better. I think it's important that we find support. So I've been doing this for 45 years. Started out, like you said, as a CNA, and then did home health for a lot of years. So working with people living in their home and their support person in their home. Got into skilled nursing for a while, where I learned a lot of things, and then assisted living. And it's this beautiful landscape where you have support people, and the family can really be the care partner. I remember a gentleman, and he didn't have dementia, but his family said to us, when my mom and dad were at home, every visit was a duty visit. Does my dad need to go to the doctor? Does my mom have her meds? How are they doing? And he said, when I moved them into a community, I got to be the son again. And that was a really important lesson for me, because we don't think about that need. And so it's something that I continue to share with families. When you find a place that you feel is the right home for them, you have people who support you on this journey. You get to be the son or daughter, the husband, the wife, the grandchild. You get to be that person again. And we can partner in care to take care of that person and help support the person who is supporting the person living with dementia. And I think that's a really important phrase, is calling it living with dementia and supporting their care partners, and really talking about what that is. But it's, the families, and especially when you do a standalone assisted living or a memory care community, you see a lot of families in the different stages. At Prairie City Landing, we have 19 residents who live in our memory care unit. We call it Harbor. That's a safe space. And the ability to interact with them and their families and to be able to support and work together is a beautiful thing. And I think families are very appreciative of that.
I thank you for explaining like duty. I don't love that was said, but I think it opens everybody's heart and mind to the fact that there is a part of duty when one is caring for the person living with any dementia or any disability. There's a duty part where you're getting the meds, you're doing all this stuff. But what you're saying is you're creating that space to move from being in charge, having that duty, to where you can come back and have those moments where you're connecting again with your loved one without feeling like you have to be the one to kind of tell them what to do and all of those kinds of things. And do you see relief in the caregiver? And what does that look like from your side?
The relief once they settle in, because there's guilt related to having to make that placement. Okay. And all the things that go along with that in the grieving process. And there was a gentleman who said to us once, and it was another learning opportunity, he said, once I placed my wife, I have to figure out who I am again. Wow. Because I've been a husband for 45 years. It's been me and my wife. And now when I bring her to you, how do I be me, just me? And so we support them through that as well, because there is a major shift in their life. Yeah. There is a sense of relief, and then there's guilt related to having relief. But knowing that you can sleep at night and somebody else is looking out for that person, I think that brings a sense of peace. Once they get to where they can trust us and that relationship is going, and they know that we are there to be their partner in care, they can sleep at night. And sleeping at night is a beautiful thing.
Exactly, because it's an interesting. My children are adults now, and so, but as long as they were living at home, I realized I was not sleeping in the way that I'm sleeping now. It doesn't mean that I don't worry about them and I don't pray for them before I lay my head on the pillow. But at the end of the day, I know that they are in the world and they're navigating their space, and I don't have to worry in the same way. And so what you're saying is that this transition is slow, because trust has to be built, because it's another person engaged, or persons engaged in the care, where they're out making their own choices. That's a little bit different. But what kinds of things do you and your staff do to build the trust with the caregiver?
You know, it's one moment at a time, one instance at a time. I think it's really important when we call, if there's a negative experience, we also talk about the positive things. I've had families say to me, it's like going to the principal's office. And so we want to make sure that when that moment, but telling them the good things that are going on, making sure that they're getting medications on time, having great experiences. One of the things I love about what we do at Prairie City Landing is when we go out, our residents in Harbor, we really try to figure out, so our building is 130 apartments.
I was going to ask you, yeah.
Yeah, 19 of those are in memory care. And we work to make sure it is not an over there. It is part of the community. It's a more secured area for people that need just a little bit more. And so our residents go out on outings, and they get out and they do things. They come to our events that happen in the independent assisted living side of the building, and really get them involved. And for families to see them thrive in that environment, that's what really can help build trust. They want to see that their loved one is thriving, that they're engaged in activity, that they are getting the treatment that they deserve, that they've earned through that lifetime, and that it's no different. We're caring for somebody whose brain is not functioning the same.
I love that. I love that you said they're not over there. Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, so much for that value and that philosophy, because that's been the very thing that I think has been, kind of that thing for me, where I always say, okay, why are they in the back of the building? Why aren't they engaging in some of the activities with other people? Because I have found, we just went to an A's game. We took a group of our folks. I didn't go because I'm not a baseball fan. Don't kill me, folks in the Bay Area. And they, I know, they had such a joyful time. They were sending me pictures. The caregivers, of course, came along so that when the game was over, we didn't have to put them on another bus and take them around. But what I saw was joy. And joy is a commodity these days. Joy is when you can laugh with abandonment. The caregivers were there, they were laughing, they all had hot dogs. And what I thought in one of the photos, I said, you know what? None of these people look like they were diagnosed. I've said this 100 million times in my career, but none of them look like they had dementia, because what does dementia look like? Do we make it look like people are these dependent? Now, I'm not saying that there doesn't come a time in the disease process where hospice and people need a little bit more support and all of those things. But when someone is still able to be engaged, like you're saying, being in the same activities with people who do not have dementia, it seems like there's something about that rise in them, that I call it the dignity puff, that they just kind of puff up. And
like that. I'm going to use the dignity puff because I like that.
I love it. I love it because I see it. I've seen it where the whole body just kind of goes, whoa, I'm doing something. So in your community, what you're describing is that dignity puff, that they are engaged with other people in your community, and you can see it. And so how, as a leader of that community, what does that do for you?
It makes my heart swell, makes my heart smile. Not long ago, so our residents have gone to the River Cats games. Yesterday they went on the Sacramento River cruise. So we look at things, and the idea, because I've heard people say, oh, residents with dementia can't do that. Yes, they can. We just do it a little bit differently. It's going to mean more staffing, but I had an opportunity twice in the last couple of months. We went to Rick's Diner in Sacramento. It's a dessert diner. And it's an amazing place. And so and involved with the residents getting to have ice cream and making their choice on the menu. And the joy that they have in the cake, the ice cream. And we have a resident, Gary, who got the banana split. He ate the whole banana split, and sitting with him while he was enjoying that really made my heart smile. And I said, these are things I need to do more often. So a month later, we went to Leatherby's here in Folsom. Amazing ice cream. It is a show when they bring your ice cream. It's overflowing. It is, it's extravagant. And sit with the residents and enjoy ice cream and watch them. And we help them with the menu because menu choices can be big. So helping them and talking about the desserts and what did they get to choose. And then watching them enjoy those desserts and watching them come out and saying, oh my gosh, that is so big. The conversations are fun. And I think, and I encourage executive directors to do that because that's why we do this job in the first place. It's not the paperwork, it's the people. Our residents come out to the dining room 3 times a week. So we have a fancier dining room called Cypress. Natoma is a little bit more casual. Our residents come down and they get to dine in the dining room, and it's like going to a restaurant, but they're inside their own building. And the joy of seeing them sitting around the tables together and having a wide variety of choice on their menu. It makes my heart smile, and it reminds me why I do this.
Because, we can get we can get caught up, you're the executive director, I'm a CEO, which means executive director here. And we can get caught up in our paperwork, and all the numbers and the budgets and la, 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 all great stuff, all necessary stuff. But it's those moments when we lean back and realize why we're here. I always say they are my muse. If I have to write a grant or if I have to go and talk to a vendor or a donor, I don't feel, I'm like, okay, I remember that person or that person. I picture them in my mind as if I'm talking on their behalf because I am. And so when you said for other executive directors to do that, I really applaud you in giving that mentor sort of advice and I share it with you because it's time, people. We've got to, yes, we're leaders. And I tell you, I hid my piles of paper. I always hide them when I do the show because I don't want you all to see how much work I have to do. But
I might know how that is. I'm not going to confirm or deny, but I might know.
Don't confirm or deny. But I hit them, and the reality is, what? It's always going to be there. There's always paper, and I love what you said. You said so many wonderful jewels. Paper over people.
Yes.
The people are very important. And then, do you have caregiver support groups, or how do you interact with the caregiver as they're living in their grief, or do you partner with other community-based services for that support?
Our harbor director is Janelle, and Janelle runs a support group for families, and we've got about 6 or 7 people who interact. We also have people in our assisted living, the husband-wife, who interact in that group because it is very important. And it's been interesting to me too to see if it's big enough. The husband and wife will have different emotions. They're similar, but you choose your husband or wife. You don't choose your parent. So what children are going through can be different than what parents are going through. Yes. And being able to support them in those individual needs and yet as a group, because as we can guide a group, they really support each other because they're living it every day. So yes, we have a support group. I think it's important to have groups for the residents as well to be able to talk through what they know they're going through, because when you don't know, it's a very scary thing. And so being able to have residents who can sit and talk, and it may not make a lot of sense, but at least they get to talk through it. And I've seen that happen before and be very successful.
I love that. I recently had a health episode, I'm going to call it, not a crisis, but an episode where the vulnerability of aging kind of popped up in my little head. And my son had to come and intervene and help me. And I began to realize how it must feel when someone gets that diagnosis of dementia or whatever the disability may be. and they have to lean on their children when in fact they want their children to be independent, living their own lives. And for a few minutes, I will say, maybe more than a few minutes, but I had a moment of like, oh my God, please don't let this be the beginning of something else, because I don't want him. I don't want him caring for me. And so that's the other piece that I think that your experience brings to this, that there are sometimes people who are reluctant to tell their family that they're experiencing dementia, or that they're not able to navigate their home in a way that they once were 5 years, even 2 years, or a year ago. And so when you bring them together, I know that there are intake and marketing people that work in that, but when they come together, how do you help them, both sides, to overcome all of that stuff, to see that, joining your wonderful community is not like saying you have to join, but it's an option to all of that other stuff.
Yeah, it's an invitation. And I think when we're doing the marketing part, the listening piece is the most important, because each journey is different. There's a similarity, but they're different. And each family is experiencing that differently. And when you're looking for dementia care, usually it's the loved one looking first. And rarely does the resident know that they're going to be moving in. It can be easier, but some families do want to tell the person that they're going to be moving. Mm-hmm. We will go along with it, even if we believe that that may not be the right thing to do, because for the family, it is the right thing to do. So we encourage them not to share that information a week or a month in advance. Let's talk about it maybe the day before, so they're not having to worry about what is that going to be. Oh, I'm going somewhere. What did you say? What does that mean? And just walking through that with them together. We'll give them some advice from what we've experienced, and then we let them make the decision, and we'll support the way that they want to do it. It's really important that when that resident and the family comes in for the first time, that we're all joining together to support them and walk them in, and being able to give the family member a way to walk away and let us support the resident. So how do we have not a, oh my gosh, mom, a very emotional goodbye, an emotional separation, helping them to be able to go out the door and let us take over and have that resident settle in. But it's really important to listen to them and let them understand where they are and work with that.
So when the caregiver leaves, I've heard, and I don't know, I've heard it. I haven't worked in that side of the care puzzle, but are caregivers allowed to come in and out, or are you saying to them, give your loved one time to adapt? How do you manage that at your community?
We will also give the family time to adapt, because they're going through that process. And I hear so many people say, well, they say I shouldn't come for a week, but if that's going to cause angst for the family and the resident, why would we do that? So after the first day, usually that evening, we will call the family and say, this is what the first day was like. This is what we experienced, and give them some peace of mind so they can go to sleep that night as well. If they feel that they need that break, we encourage and support that. If that break is too much for them, then absolutely come in. Helping people understand a 15 to 30-minute visit can be as powerful as an all-day visit. It is quality versus quantity, and helping people understand a quality visit is what you're looking for. And then we help them to disengage, and giving them advice on how the leave should be, because we'll have a care partner walk over and distract the resident so we can assist the family member to leave.
Yeah, good idea. I like that. So it's not this dragging people apart from each other. I love what you just said, because I have to be honest. I've been told by some caregivers that they were told not to visit their family member for a week, to give them an opportunity to adapt after they've left this model. And it's just like, I don't know, I don't know about that, when I can see on their face that they're just worried, they're concerned, and I thought I didn't put the community down because I don't do that, but I was concerned because the loved one was, you could see that, you could visibly see that, you know, they wanted to go and just peer through the window to just see their loved one, and not interfere, but just that they had missed them, and because they've been caregiving for so long that in many cases when people move from adult day healthcare to assisted living or a congregate setting, the caregiver's been, that's just been their life, and so all of a sudden it's like, phew, gone. And how do they manage that if they're not able to at least poke in and say, but I love the, like you're saying, it can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it can be a 5-minute where you just sit with the person and then say, I have to go now, or not say you have to go, and give them a kiss, and however you do it. But you can do it in a short bite-sized pieces. It doesn't have to be a long visit. Yeah. Yeah.
We talk about personalized care, and we want to make sure that not only are we looking at the individual resident, but the family that goes along with that. And they are entrusting us. So I've done work with you. I've decided that I'm going to move my loved one into your community. So I have a basis of trust, but I really don't know you other than that.
Right.
And I'm entrusting somebody that I love to you. And I also want to check and make sure that everything is okay. So when we're saying, please don't come back for a week, or if that's the message that's being given, that can be very, it can cause distraction and distraught. And we don't want that. And so how do we make sure that they know? And it may be they need sleep. Right. I've said to families who are going on vacation, when we say, you will say, oh, don't worry. I don't tell them that. I say, worry 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, and go enjoy your vacation, because being given permission to worry a little bit helps them to be able to enjoy that vacation. They're going to worry. So for us, they don't worry. That's not the right answer.
I love that. I'm writing it down because so many wise tidbits that we're getting, or gems or pearls, however you are used to hearing it from Cheryl Martin this morning. And I hope that you have your pen and pencil and that you're writing this stuff down. And if you're not, you can always go back and hit the replay button and then share this with caregivers that that might not have been able to join us this morning. And Cheryl, I want to talk about your center, your community, because it's not a center, your community, Prairie City Landing in Folsom. So Folsom is above Sacramento, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so do you have care families from all over the Bay Area because there's such a shortage of care facilities around?
We're finding a lot of people transplanting. We're kind of a little bit more northeast. And so we're getting Bay Area people, but we get from the hills, Roseville, Sacramento. But we're seeing families move a resident from different parts of the country, because you really need to get your loved one. So if a family lives in Folsom, they need that senior, that parent living close to them. So we've moved people as far as Pennsylvania, Florida, Arizona, Southern California. When I was in Oakland, we had somebody move in from China. And so it was, they're coming from all over. But really here, it's the greater Sacramento area.
And are you at full capacity now in the dementia wing?
Yes.
Or dementia community? I'm sorry.
Yes.
You are at capacity. Okay.
Yes, most of our residents, so we have residents who move in from the outside, but we also have residents who live in our independent and assisted living, who we see the cognitive signs. And Jan and Janelle work. Jan is the resident services director, Janelle, the memory care harbor director. We really work with families as we're seeing the decline and knowing that they're going to thrive better. In the small environment, we work with families to move them over. So a lot of our residents do come from our assisted living. I counted 10 or 11 the other day out of our 19. I was just doing they transferred over. We have a couple of spouses who have their loved one, husband or wife, living in memory care, and they're living in the assisted living side. And it's so they can go visit whenever, which is nice. They can go home to their apartment and sleep at night knowing that their loved one is being cared for under the same roof that they're in.
I love that. So describe the assisted living model, not the dementia wing or community. Apologize for the language. I hate the language that I'm using because I don't like that language. But the dementia community. Describe the assisted living and what that means for our audience that may not have been exposed to assisted living yet.
So assisted living is if you're in need of support, and I love the term support rather than assisted living services, bathing, dressing, medication management, redirection, you have your meals made. What is beautiful about our community and our sister community in Elk Grove, Bruceville Point, we have an events and adventures program. We don't have most call it an activities program. We really have events and adventures. And our residents go all over. They've gone cow milking, beekeeping, just if they can dream it, we can figure out how to achieve it. And the beauty of assisted living or independent living, and we have some very independent residents who really are not in need of support at this moment. They can transition to having assisted living services without moving from their apartment. So our entire building is licensed for assisted living, but there are many residents who don't need supportive services such as medication management or anything like that. But we are able to get them to doctor's appointments, to some of the functions. We go out to dinner routinely. We have a beautiful dining room with a very expansive menu, but it's also nice to go out to dinner somewhere else. And so we have a lot of active residents that do that. We on 9/11 delivered breakfast burritos to the fire department and the police department in honor of 9/11. And our residents went along and got to present those burritos. It was a way of saying thank you for all they do for us. But we're not a medical model. There are things we interact with the medical professionals to be able to provide the care, but we really are a social support model.
I love that. I love that. And so do you have any openings or are you also at capacity in that side of the business?
We're very full in that side of the business, but there's always a couple of openings because the transition of, we will lose residents and often it's to death. So I think that brings an important piece too, is how do we support the care partners, which are our staff. We call our care, many times it's a caregiver in MedTech. We call them care partners because it's a partner in care. How do we also support the staff, the care partners, that the people in the dining room? And our dining room director, Mickey, told me the other day, Cheryl, the residents that have moved over to Harbor, they were once our residents too. And we grieve when they leave. And yet we get to see them every day over in Harbor. And so it's how do we support them, and offering grief support to our staff is very important.
I agree 100% that the staff, the care partners, the people that oh, Cheryl, you're amazing. Well, it's a philosophy, it's a value structure that they're not just the worker bees, that these are people who connect on a day-to-day basis with a human being, another human being. And when that human being leaves this side of the veil of life, we need to acknowledge that. Every year here, we try to have what we call just a ceremony of lighting the candle. So we'll get votive candles and light a candle for each of the people, whether they were discharged because they were moved on into your type of community, or that they passed away. And that helps staff to know that they've done a good work, they've done a good thing, and that they've been good servants to human beings who were strangers when they walked through the door, but became family almost through caring for them. And when you go take someone in the bathroom and you're cleaning their private parts or helping them get dressed in the morning, that's a very intimate relationship, and that requires a special connection, a special heart. So I really appreciate that you said that, because I think sometimes even families forget that about the people that work in these places, and we forget that sometimes as leaders.
We do. And they are so connected to the resident. And that's what you want from the staff. You want that. I tell them, I want you to love them, and it's going to break our heart. Love them anyway. And at the end of the day, when a resident passes away or leaves our community, they know that they've done a good job and they've loved that person. And it does hurt. When I was at Lakeside, we had so that was 70 people living with dementia. That's a big population. And we had a lot of death over a few months. Hospice came in and did a ceremony, and they had the tall candle glass things. They gave the staff sand, colored sand, and they said, go up and pour the sand into the jar and say, this is in memory of. What happened was people were pouring sand for people who had died 5 years ago, and they had carried that grief for 5 years. It was a profound experience for me, reminding me that they're carrying that grief as well, and how do we honor that? So every month at our Team Connect meeting, we bring up anyone who has left the community, whether discharged to another setting for whatever reason or death, and we talk through that. And that's a moment for people to grieve. I think it's important for communities to find a way that we can celebrate and honor people. At our community, we have a little candle, a photo of the resident, and we have cards, just blank pieces of paper, card stock. And residents, staff write notes to the family, a memory of that person. And when about a week or two later, we gather that all up and send those cards to the family members so they can read them. And they get to read them in the privacy of their home. So the tears that flow from it, we know they do. And we've had families call us back and say, thank you so much for those notes. So find a way to honor it. Like you said, that you line up the candles. It's very important that we do that.
Oh, I just got goosebumps because that's so powerful. That is so powerful. We are coming to the end of our time, Cheryl, but I want to make sure that people know how to get in contact with Prairie City Landing and Folsom. I'm sure you have a website. I'm sure they can find, but then kind of talk to them about what the intake process is, so that if they should want to, because this podcast goes out, we have people up in the Sacramento area all around. And I want to make sure that if they should need your services, they can find you.
You can prairiecitylanding.com, and has a place to gather information, but to call us as well. Cynthia Bazin is our marketing director. When you come in, so we're going to gather information, and it's really important, I think, that families know to really tell us, what are you dealing with? What made you make the decision today? Help us be able to give you all of the correct information, because a lot of times people will say, oh, my mom's independent. What does that mean? It's a term that I'm not fond of, because we need support. Every one of us needs support. But we're going to walk you through getting the information, choosing an apartment. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a form called the 602. It's a physician's report licensing. We are licensed communities. Licensing does expect us to gather information. So this report goes to the doctor. The doctor is going to give us medical information. The family gives us information. And really, if the resident, it's independent living and assisted living, we want to work with that resident. They're the one making the choice. If it's memory care, it's the family making that choice. But the information, so then we go out and do an assessment. So Jan or Janelle or one of us will go and really try to figure out what are the supportive services that they're going to need. And it's really about how can we support them to be successful? And what does that look like for them at that moment? And once the assessment is done and we choose a date, get the apartment set up and have that person move in. But we will walk you through every step of it. We will hold your hand, and we will help guide that process.
And that process, the time, I know I have to remind families we're licensed to, and we've got to do some of the same things that, it's not, I mean, we can't, I wish we could get someone in 24 hours. We don't have that capacity because of the paperwork that we have to fill out and the things that we have to get from physicians and things. So what's the time sort of, I mean, and I know that's unique to each family, but kind of what's the length of time that it takes for an intake to go from the phone call to moving in?
We've had in this community as short as a week or less. And it's that 602 is really that dependent thing. TB test has to be done. So that piece, we cannot move a person in until that is done, because that's a paper required by law. but I've done 24-hour move-ins before because the physician's report was ready. So it's
Okay.
how soon can we do know that if it's Kaiser, it will take a little bit longer to get that report. And so but Jan's got an excellent process for contacting and working with Kaiser to get that physician's report and then the assessment. So we can move as quickly as we need to. In independent living and assisted living, often families need a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And then it's choosing the furniture and where is that going to go? I call it the anchor pieces, what's going to go into the apartment, because we're downsizing from big apartments or big homes to an apartment. Our apartments are very large. We have full kitchens in most of the apartments. Laundry is right in that apartment. So now is how are we going to decorate? And I really tell people to make it feel as home-like as possible. And I think that's really important moving into memory care. I don't like that term either, but it is the industry standard for memory care. But have the apartment set so when the resident is moving in, they're seeing things that are familiar and they're going to go into this new space that has their familiar belongings in it.
Wow. Well, Cheryl Martin is the executive director for or at Prairie City Landing in Folsom. She has been in the field of caring for people just like myself. That's why her story resonates with me. We started as CNAs and went into home health, and now we're serving in different levels of different models of care, but we are serving. And Cheryl is serving up in the Folsom area, not far from Sacramento, Roseville, and Auburn, that sort of community there. I invite you to go and say that you heard about it on Life is a Sacred Journey and meet with Cheryl and her staff. I invite you to just go and prepare. This is something that, Cheryl, I've been really advocating families to do. You may not need an assisted living today, meaning for your family member, and you may not need an assisted living today. But if you have children and if you have grandchildren that will be possibly making that decision for you down the road or you for someone else, it's better to have the knowledge. You do not feel so vulnerable when you have knowledge. It may not happen for years or at all, but the knowledge gives you a sense of assurance that you would not have if you waited until you needed it. So I invite you to go and visit Prairie City Landing in Folsom. Give them a call, do a site visit, get ready so that just like that insurance, that car insurance that we're paying money for, I hope I never have to use it, right? But the reality is I have car insurance so that if I have an accident, somebody hits me. I'm not going to say I'm hitting anybody. Somebody hits me, I can get my car repaired and I can get the health care I need. I can ensure that the other person is okay. And that's what you're doing. When you gather the data ahead of time and then you stay in touch if it's something that you're thinking about so that you know where they are as far as how many apartments or if there's space in the community that you're interested in. And you can go to their website. Cheryl just gave that website information to you. Just, folks, it's all about being prepared. There's some things we can't prepare for, but there are some things that it is in our power to prepare for them.
I love when a prospective resident says, I'm choosing so my family doesn't have to. I talk to families about what if instead of what now.
Yeah.
What if I need this instead of, oh my gosh, what now? I got to make a choice right now. So it's really good to be prepared, like you're saying.
Yeah. Well, Cheryl Martin, thank you so much. This has been a delightful conversation. I am so excited that I got to be in your presence again. You are definitely one of those leaders that has a value system that I know makes life easier for the people that you have served in your decades of work, but now at Prairie City Landing in Folsom, California. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Life is a Sacred Journey. Friends, reach out. They're there to help you. And as we close, we always close this way, Cheryl. If you are somebody out there that is feeling a sense of depression, you're feeling anxiety, it's to the point where you are about to explode and you think that suicide is the way you want to go. The suicide hotline is 988. It's an easy number. They changed it a little bit over a year, 2 years ago now, so that people could contact them. They are backed up, friends. So if you call and the line is busy, or they say, please hold, or whatever has to happen, don't hang up thinking nobody cares. Stay on the line. Somebody will get to you as soon as they can. We are living in a time of depression, anxiety, oppression, and people are just crying out for help. But the suicide hotline is there for you, 988. So have a wonderful weekend. Get out into the world. It's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. And I know it's beautiful up in the Folsom area. So drive up to Folsom. Say hi to Cheryl.
Yes.
Have a wonderful weekend. Go out and hug a tree, pet a dog, pet a cat, because you know what? It'll make you feel better. And then we'll see you again next week here at Life is a Sacred Journey. I am Michelle Pope, and it is my honor to be here with you every Friday. Cheryl Martin, Prairie City Landing in Folsom, California. Check them out. They're a good place, and they have a phenomenal leader, as you have just learned. Okay. Be well,
Michelle, it's been an honor to talk with you again as well.
It's great. It's great to talk with you.